Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. It's all about prog metal today. We're going to be talking about our 10 favorite prog metal bands who have debuted since the year 2000. So we're looking at the last 22 years. They had to have released their first album in 2000 or later. If they released anything in the 90s, doesn't count. In the house today, we've got the professor of prog, Ken Golden. Hey. George Lemmy.
So,
and all the way from Scotland, up very late as always for us, Mr. Stephen Reed. What's up, gentlemen?
Hey, how are you, Pete?
So I've seen lots of comments from people over the last couple of weeks that we need to talk more about prog metal bands. So this is the show for you, everybody. But of course, these are relatively newish prog metal bands. So if all you really know is like Dream Theater, Fate's Warning, and Symphony X, and maybe a little Pain of Salvation or Vanden Plas, well, you got a lot that you're going to be hearing about tonight. So we've each got our 10 favorites. We might have some honorable mentions at the end. What we're going to do is during each turn, we're going to list 3 of them. We may bring an album or a CD to show off as one of our favorites from this band, or just a representation from the band. I'll have Stephen kick us off with his first 3 selections, and then we'll go George, Ken, and myself, and we'll do 3 trips around, and we'll reveal our number 1. So, Stephen, what do you got for your first 3 choices here?
Okay, I don't know about you 3 guys. I find this a little bit of a challenge. That 2000 cutoff really just completely took a whole swathe of bands that are right at the top of this genre out of the game, and it made it very interesting. Quite a challenge, but very interesting. And I'm looking forward to what you guys have got, because I might get an education tonight. And I'm also looking forward to the comments for the same reason. So I'm going to start with a band called Aneurysm, with a Z, okay, who were formed in 2010. They seem to have been, the debut album was released in 2010. They date much further back than that. I think they had about 6 or 7 years kind of just putting things together. They hail from the United Arab Emirates, which is not really the hotbed of prog metal, you wouldn't have thought. And they seem to go through band members at a heck of a rate. So I get the impression that this is one of those file-sharing bands. The sound isn't cutting edge, but they've done a couple of albums and they're both really good. This is called All Is Not For All. Okay, this was released 6 years ago. And I really quite like this. As I say, production-wise, it's a bit clunky. Talent-wise, it's absolutely bang on the money. They play a kind of technical, progressive metal. They're not kind of pushing the boundaries too far, but what they do is really good. So the debut was called Worm's Eye View, but All Is Not For All. And for show and tell, I've tried to, he says, not be able to find the CDs for the next band I'm about to talk about. Picked out my favourite CD from each band. So this is my favourite Aneurysm album, All Is Not For All. Okay.
Rhinoceros, yes.
I vaguely remember them. I used to sell it, I think. Vaguely.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about it, but I used to sell it.
I like it. As I say, they're not going to blow your mind in the sense of, wow, I've never heard that before. But I like what they do. The singer at this stage is a guy called Nadim Michel Bibi, who I don't know from anything else. Will Patterson, or Patterin, is the singer on the first and the third album, or first, and he was there at the start. There again now. I actually prefer the guy in the middle, but there you go. So my second choice is The Siberium. Okay, so that's a band from Chicago. They're a recent discovery for me because they were kind enough to send Pete nearly all of the releases, bar the newest one, for review on the webzine. So they played in 2019's Prog Stock, and the debut album arrived in 2018. And since then, they've given us everything, basically a release every year from then. Nothing this year yet, but I would guess the way that they work, that'll probably change. So the most recent album came out last year. It's called Connected. They've got a live album and an EP. They are really quite prolific. It's borderline progressive rock, progressive metal, but there's definitely a grittier, darker edge to their sound that, for me, allowed them to fall into this category. I would suggest that probably Connected, the most recent album, is the one that I would start with. I don't have anything for show and tell because I couldn't find them. That's the truth. I have all their stuff. I genuinely couldn't find them to come and show. There you go. Thank you, Ken. He's on the case. But the self-titled debut and the live album Forging Nations aren't
Quick
far
was
behind.
that? Jeez, he's just like,
Thank you
knew
very
exactly
much.
where
Look
it
at
was.
that. There you go. That's efficiency for you. Ken is, as always, on the ball.
Don't mention the band Xanadu. I'll have a problem. That's a good digging.
That's my next pick gone. No. So number 8 for me, I mean, they're in an order, they're not really in an order. Number 8 for me, I'm going to go with one of the big boys. I'm going to go with Sons of Apollo. I don't need to say too much about them. Everyone knows Jeff Scott Soto, Bumblefoot, Derek Strinian, Billy Sheehan, Mike Portnoy, 2 albums and a live album. Do you know, I come back to these albums quite regularly. I just think that the standard of musicianship carries these. The songs are not really pushing the boundaries of what we expect in progressive rock or metal, but you just can't argue with the guys that are on it. And I think that they take on a different dimension if you've been fortunate enough to see them live, which I have a couple of times. They really, really knock it out of the park live. And that's when the jaw hits the floor. The albums are great, but live, wow, what a band. So yeah, my number 8 is Sons of Apollo.
You know what? I forgot about Sons of Apollo. But I did. And, I feel kind of dumb. But, man, they were great live. They really, did you guys see them? They were great. And, I think the second album is better than the first album.
I tend to listen to the first one more, but yeah, it's
I wanted to, if I remember correctly, doesn't the first album end with an instrumental?
I think it does, yeah. I think that's right.
And that's the thing. I so badly wanted to resequence that album. Because it just seemed like an odd way for that band to end with an instrumental. Stick it in the middle somewhere. I wanted,
especially when they've got such a good singer.
Yeah,
he's a great singer. They're a great band. They were a lot of fun live. They were.
Yeah, they are the band that have the distinction of being the only one that I've ever seen in Motherwell. Okay, and for people from Scotland, they'll all be going, "He saw a band in Motherwell." So there you go.
Bumblefoot's my guy, man. I love Bumblefoot. I love Ron. And
they're probably the loudest band I've seen over the last decade.
Really
excruciating.
Hey, what was the loudest show you ever saw?
Probably Man of War at the Chance in Poughkeepsie back in the 80s. Oh, ridiculous. Actually, the 3 loudest shows I ever saw was that one. I saw one of those Gigantor shows in Poughkeepsie at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center. It's like Megadeth, Dream Theater, Symphony X, Nevermore, a bunch of other bands. And then this Sons of Apollo show, which was literally a week before COVID-19 hit. It was the last show I saw in 2020. It was so loud. I was in shock how loud it was, to the point where like you knew they were killing it up on stage, but you couldn't hear anything past this gigantic wall of noise. And that's why I want to see them again. I hope I get the chance where it's not so loud, so I really can hear all the little, because they're doing some amazing shit on stage, but it was just ridiculously loud. Ridiculous.
See, you're giving a really good example as to why I carry a good set of earplugs on my keys.
Oh, so I was wearing them.
I never forget them. They're never left in the house. They're always by my side when I'm standing at a gig. And I must admit, I mean, they are a good pair. They were quite expensive. So you still can get the top end. You find that most earplugs just knock that top end out and you're just left listening to the bass all night. Yeah. If you invest in a good pair, then you can actually put them in. And I now verge on preferring the sound of them in, I must admit. And if a gig is really quiet, I'm kind of like, I have to take these out. Because it sounds really, I don't know, sharp without them now. And I suppose that's obviously to do with the plugs. But for a band like Sons of Apollo, it was a real boon because I put them in and thought, I can actually hear what's going on now. And needed them, they were that loud.
I didn't remember the Philly show being that loud.
Yeah, I don't know what it's for some reason. I think the Jersey show, the guy that they normally were, the sound guy they normally were using was not there, and they used one of the house guys or something, and everybody was complaining about it. I remember I was sitting with Chris Caffrey. He didn't have earplugs, I did, and he's like, "My ears are killing me," and I'm like, "My ears are killing me," and I have earplugs in. It was that bad. It was just, and Billy Sheehan was like way louder than everybody else. And it was just like, you couldn't hear Sharinian at all. You couldn't hear, Jeff Scott Soto, and it was just way too loud. But you're watching them and you're like, oh my God, these guys are doing some great stuff, and you know all the songs, but it was just a wall of noise.
Was that with Felix? Was that with Felix Martin opening up?
It was at the it was in Jersey, down in not the Wellmont, the other place.
What, in Red Bank?
No, over close to the bridge. The hell's the name of that place?
In Philly, they had Felix Martin playing that 200 string instrument that he played.
Oh no, you know who opened up for him? Tony McAlpine.
Oh, nice.
Tony McAlpine opened up. Yeah, he was good, but it's way too much soloing.
If you haven't seen it, the DVD with the orchestra and all the cover tunes, really good.
That's I heard it's really good.
Yeah.
I think it's gone out of print now.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the loudest show I ever saw was Robin Trower. Sometime in the early '80s. It was in New York I think it was at the Ritz. Oh my God. I was like a fly, like I'm circling a light bulb. It got louder, and I just kept going closer and closer to the stage. It was, by the time I got up front, I was like brain dead. It was amazing.
Fender Stratocaster straight into a Marshall. That's it, with a wah-wah pedal.
It was unbelievable.
And a fuzz pedal. Yeah.
That was loud.
Good old Robin. I love him. All right, George, what do you got? What are your first three here?
Well, actually, when I went into this, I thought I wanted to apply a parameter similar to baseball. Baseball, to qualify for the batting title, you have to have 502 plate appearances in the season. So I kind of thought that kind of a thing, I was going to eliminate one and dones, and we've done one and done shows. And I even thought that 3 would be a good amount, because if you got 2 albums in 22 years, you're not that great. I mean, you got to do more than one every 7 years. So, but I did want to acknowledge some good 2-album bands. So I'm pulling apart on doing a tie at number 10 between Arch Matthews, Thought Chamber.
Oh yeah, good call.
And Arc.
George, I'm gonna
Sensory Records.
I'm gonna call an audible here, because I'm gonna raise the red flag on Arc. Because Arc came out in Europe in 1999, and then we put it out in 2000. I'm sorry, the rules are the rules, and I'm a stickler for the rules.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned them, because Arc are great. Yeah, and that first album.
They were on my list. They were on my list. George, I'm sorry, I'm penalizing you.
That's fine. Thought Chamber actually and Arch Matthews are technically active. Thought Chamber does have the 3rd album done. It's just they were looking for a label. Now that's taken care of, so that will appear. And Arch Matthews, it'll be interesting to see if they get more active now with supposedly Fate's Warning's done. So will that mean they're more active, or is John Arch still building cabinets? I don't know, but I would like to see them be more active, because for me, every record both records are exciting. So
yeah, I would agree on that. Yeah, I totally forgot to include them.
That's my tie for number 10. My number 9, Redemption, More Sensory. They got 7 albums, all pretty consistent. The first one I'm not that sold on, and the latest one with Tom, it's not Tom, it's just, I don't know what it is. It hasn't sat with me that good yet, but I'm still trying. My number 8 is from Texas, Shaolin Death Squad. 4 releases, all very good quality, but they've been around since 2003, so they're not very active either, but it's a band I would suggest people look into. They have no profile whatsoever, so anyone that listens to them at all would be a plus for them.
Look at you pulling a Pardo tonight and pulling some Chris Allo math. I love it. Gotta love it. Yeah, I know Allo does it all the time. Whenever we do any kind of ranking the film shows on the Monsters Den or ranking the album shows, he goes, "Well, I did this weird math, and you get this points for that." And I'm like, my head's gonna explode. I'm like, I don't do no math on this show. What are you kidding me? So very cool, very good. All right, Ken, what do you got?
Well, you're gonna notice this theme for me tonight. So it's going to be.
Gee, I wonder what.
Yeah. So there might be a few sensory bands mentioned. So for number 10, I got Arc, Burn the September. I'm kidding. No, George, I'm sorry, George. I feel bad about that because I literally, because, we talked about it. I love Arc. And if we want to say screw it, 99 is okay, then Arc definitely on the list, because to me, Arc would have been right near the top of the list because, man, they were fantastic. But technically, that first album came out in 99 in Europe, and so I didn't list it. And yeah, okay. So for my number 10, I don't have a prop because I sold out of all the CDs years ago, and I just have it sitting on my server, and I don't care about the one and done rule because I like this band.
Ken didn't do his math on this one.
No, not at all. One is a number. And actually, the band is back together and they are recording a new album. This is a band from Poland called Joseph Magazine. And they made an album called Night of the Red Sky. And it's almost all instrumental. There are some vocals on it, a little bit like, I guess you'd want to call it like black metal, death metal, but literally we're talking about like 30 seconds out of the whole album. Extremely cinematic. It almost could have been like a movie soundtrack. And the sound on this, if you're an audiophile, and people know I'm a crazy audiophile, it's one of the best sounding metal albums I've ever heard. They didn't crush it, and I put that album on and I blow friends away with it because they're not used to hearing metal music, because you never play it because usually it's so crushed to death. You put it on the system and it just sounds awful. Joseph Magazine, Night of the Red Sky, phenomenal album, great music, and a great sounding album. So that's my number 10. Now I'm back to the show and tell. So number 9, a band that frankly I fucked up because I had the opportunity to sign them years ago and I blew it. It is a Dutch band called Exevious. And they made 2 albums and they've now broken up, and essentially they were like an instrumental version of Cynic. And 2 of the main guys in the band, Timon Krudener and Robin, I think it's Zielhorst, they basically joined Cynic. They became members of Cynic, and it's cut from the same cloth. So if you like that, if you like your metal to have that sort of technical edge to it, I think these guys were great. I should have signed them. I blew that one. Next one, I'm sure this is going to rank high on somebody on your list, and I put them in at 10. They're 8, number 7, right? I don't screw up. Circus Maximus, First Century band. And the reason why I ranked them so low, we did their first 2 albums. We did the first chapter, and we also did Isolate, the second album. And the only reason why I'm kind of docking them a little bit is because I don't like their albums after that so much. So I thought the third album was pretty good. I thought that there were parts of it were of this caliber and of the caliber of Isolate. After that, they were recording for Frontiers, and I think their music skewed a little too heavily into the AOR direction, and that's just not my thing at all. The first 2 albums I think are brilliant. Third album, pretty good. I would have been happy to have released it, and but after that, sorry, they kind of lost me. So
see, they snagged my melodic rock side because I still enjoy them a lot now. I think the whole catalogue, actually they're not on my list, believe it or not, but I think the whole catalogue is excellent. But I think if you like a bit of melodic rock as well, then the latter day stuff will hit a sweet spot that not a lot of bands do.
Michael is a great singer, and actually Truls, the drummer, is also a great singer, believe it or not. And Matt's great guitar player, nice guys. I wish them the best, and I wish they would go back to making stuff that sounded more like this. than Havoc, and just wasn't. They lost me there, but so for 30 seconds I lost my mind. I went with George's batting average theory. So I did the math, and they got docked. They got docked a little bit, but they still made my list. So
That's right. Hey, top 10.
and there's at the end of the year supposed to be a vinyl version of the first chapter coming out. When we did this, I had the world license for this album, and we licensed it out to Frontiers for Europe, and I think, and in Japan, a label called Soundholic, and we all had different bonus tracks. So it's going to come out at the end of the year on vinyl from a Norwegian label, and it's going to have all the bonus tracks on it. It's going to be a double album. So
Cool.
anyway, good band.
Cool. All right. My 10, 9, and 8. First, number 10 from Germany will be Tomorrow's Eve. If you like Dream Theater, if you like Seventh Wonder and Queensryche, those type of bands, this will be right up your alley. This is their most recent album. This came out. This is Mirror of Creation 3. This came out in 2018. This is basically the third part of a trilogy, which has kind of encompassed throughout their career. Their first album came out in 2000. So they've been around now for 22 years, and 3 of their handful of albums are like the continuation of the storyline. But really good vocals, lots of great guitar work. I mean, it just basically gives you everything you like if you're a fan of this style of music. Really well produced albums too. Very, very classy sounding. Really good band. So that's that one. Number 9 is a band from Norway, and they are a trio, Communic. Debuted around 2005, 2006, or 2004, something like that. This is their second album, which is called Waves of Visual Decay. Kind of thrashy at times. They're probably one of the more aggressive of the prog metal bands. They were on Nuclear Blast for many years. I'm not sure exactly where they are right now. Are they still on? Let me see. Find out exactly where they are. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're still on or they're on AFM Records. They might have moved over to AFM, but this is their second album. But they've got 6 overall. Like I said, going back to 2005. Really great vocals. Their guitar player, Oddleif Stansland, is tremendous. He also sings, and so if you like a kind of more progressive, like Megadeth, with lots of shredding guitars, great melodies, the hooks are there. This is a really, really great band, and it's complex music, but it's not overly so. That's my number 9, and then number 8, I'm going to echo Steven, and I'm going to go Sons of Apollo. I'm glad I grabbed the other albums. Now we got to show both of them today. I love both these albums a lot, and I've heard rumblings that they may not do another one, which I hope is not the case, because both of these albums to me are can't miss. You've got this. This is an example of a supergroup that really works. And again, like Steven mentioned, nothing overly original here that you haven't heard before. You can hear bits and pieces of bands that they've been in before. There's a heavy Dream Theater influence here, but I think that the songs on these 2 albums are really catchy, even though they go back and forth between prog and metal and a little AOR. But this just a great example of a supergroup that really works, and everybody pulls their weight in this band. I think that's why I really like them a lot. The vocals are outstanding. The bass is great. Bumblefoot's guitar is off the charts. You hear lots of Sharinian. Portnoy is Portnoy. And yeah, Sons of Apollo. That's my number 8. Back to Steven for 765.
Okay, so my number 7 is a band that Ken mentioned last week, which is Lalu. Okay, I've picked up the second album here. This is Atomic Arc.
It's on a great label.
Yeah, but I can't quite remember which sensory label it was on. This is my favourite of the 3 albums that they've done. I mean, it's only 3 albums across 17 years, so they're kind of struggling for your batting average, George, but they just squeak in. But all 3 albums are really good. The most recent one, Paint the Sky, is just out through Frontiers. I'm liking it a lot. I'm still getting to know it, to be fair. So Atomic Arc from 2013 is still where I'm at. I'd also argue it's probably the most progressive metal of the three, I would say. So it probably fits the brief best as well. I mean, they're formed around Vivian Lalou, kind of keyboard player, songwriter, does a variety of different things over and above this band. There are regulars that are on these CDs, but there's a humongous and impressive guest list that comes out across the three CDs, almost enough to kind of rival Arion with the amount of fantastic talent that you'll find across these albums. They're just really, really consistent, really memorable, lots of catchy hooks there, but certainly this one especially, I think, is really quite in your face in the best way in places. It's quite uncompromising in all the right ways, but it's still really memorable and hook-laden and song-based at the same time. I've got a lot of time for Lalou, really like them, and I'm pleased that on the back of, you mentioned them in last week's show, Ken, there actually has been quite a lot of people who seem to be finding them. When you read the comments on YouTube and the little kind of community that we've got on Twitter as well, there's been a lot of positive comment about people going, oh wow, I hadn't heard them before, love them. So that's a good thing.
Stephen, you should, you forgot to mention that if anybody wants copies of Atomic Arc, we're selling it for $5 at lasercd.com.
There you go. Clearly, I was not put on the payroll for tonight.
Yeah. Well, if you
as of tomorrow morning, they'll all be gone now, right?
Yeah. Would have mentioned it might have been a little something extra in your check.
That's it. By tomorrow morning, I'll have a stack of loads of them, and I'll be selling them for $6. Okay.
I appreciate your entrepreneurial spirit, man. There's something to be said for it. Almost like making pineapple habanero hot sauce. Anyway.
And moving along. So my number 6, prog metal is a wide and varied thing. Okay, so my number 6 is Tesseract. Okay, so they definitely verge into that kind of modern, technical, djent kind of sound. It's a genre, djent, that I'm not necessarily comfortable with in that sense. I just think it's progressive metal that's got quite a distinct sound. And I know that we do, and when I write reviews, I do it too, because you're trying to convey to people what things sound like. But we seem to need very narrow boxes for things to go in. To me, Tesseract are a progressive metal band, and that's really all that kind of matters when we're kind of talking about this sort of thing. They're a British band. They've been around since 2003. They've only got 4 full-length albums, but they do have lots and lots of different little releases, EPs and live albums and various things. There's lots and lots of music out there. They are probably my favourite band from this kind of scene. I find them a little bit more accessible than some of the other bands that have got this sound, and that appeals to me personally. I probably fall on the slightly less technical side of progressive metal in general, and Tesseract kind of push that boundary for me, but they do it in the right kind of ways. It's still song-based. This is Polaris from 2015, and I think actually they're really consistent. I think you can dip in and out of the catalogue at any point, but this is the one that I tend to gravitate back to. So my number 6 is Tesseract.
There was an interesting thing with that band. When they first started, they were putting out demos, and everybody was just blown away by them, and they couldn't figure out why they weren't signed to a label. And I think it was strategic. They put the music out there and to just kind of build up interest. And then I assume there was a bidding war. And if I remember, didn't Century Media sign them for the first album?
I think so, yeah.
And then they went to K-Scope, and they bounced around a little bit. But man, everybody was. I didn't even try. I was like, my God, these guys are going to blow up. They're going to be huge. And because what they were putting out there was phenomenal. I'm not a djent fan, but really, a little bit of that goes a very long way for me. And man, those guys, they're good. And that early stuff that they were putting out there, which is blowing everybody away.
I always thought that this whole djent thing, Stephen, I agree with you. I think that a lot of these bands that are classified as djent bands, they're just progressive metal bands. I think the whole djent thing is more the style of riffing and the use of polyrhythms, which is basically Meshuggah started. So who gave it this tag of djent? I have no idea, but a lot of those bands, they're just prog metal bands who do all that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it is production sounds. A lot of production tropes, they all sound the same. The guitar sound, the drum sound is almost identical on all those records.
Yeah.
To me, it just gets a little, it's too samey, I can't it's fun. Like I said, a little bit goes a long way. I can't identify one band from another. They all sort of congeal together into this just big miasma of this riff that's just, to me, a little annoying.
Yeah, I can understand that. I don't have a huge amount of it in my collection, probably for that reason. It's not something I would gravitate towards often, but Tesseract just seemed to rise to the top for me quite often. It's interesting, there's singers who's put out some solo singles, and there's a kind of element of the Tesseract sound, but it's definitely much more pop inflected, which seems to be quite on vogue again in the prog scene. It seems to be, if you're going to do some sort of prog solo thing, then let's add some choruses, hooks, and pop licks to it. So, but it's good though. It's better than a lot of the stuff that's been kind of put out in it. It's not actually in that pop sound, but it's got that leaning to it. So, trying to do something a bit different. They're a bit stop-start Tesseract, I find, in terms of their activity. I think that's maybe held them back because, as you say, Ken, they've had lots of noise and hype. They've been on the right labels, arguably, at the right time. They feel like they should be bigger than they are. So, but then again, I don't know how big kind of band it's got that singing.
That's with Dan Tompkins on vocals, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's good singer.
Yeah, he's very good singer, and they're great live, really good live. They bring it live. So
next week, I think Pete's doing top 10 djent bands. It's going to be one band that would just repeat 10 times. So.
There's going to be lots of djent fans giving us a hard time soon, but there you go.
Okay.
So my number 5 is another British band. This is Hex, or Hex. I don't quite know how you pronounce it. It's an alright band name, I suppose. 3 albums again. There seems to be quite a lot of acts from this kind of scene that are not particularly prolific. They gave a slew of EPs right at the very start, and then Tabula Rasa, their debut, came out in 2011. They're definitely kind of emphasis on the heavier end of the scale with kind of more technical interludes, I would suggest, rather than just being straight prog metal all the way through. The bassist Matt Young, who seems to be the band, handles vocals and bass and songwriting, and his vocal style I really like, but it does seem to be a turn off for some people. There you go, Ken, you've got that face as if really, does he really like it? It's very theatrical. It's quite stilted and staccato. It's really not forced, but it feels very kind of pronounced. It adds a theatric edge to it that I quite like. It gives him a point of difference, if nothing else. This is, I don't know, Kaeris, excuse my pronunciation, from 2014. This is my favourite of the 3. There's also Invictus from 2018. And then from there, they seem to have completely kind of disbanded without ending. And then there was a big fanfare last year as they announced a new lineup. And then if you go on their Facebook page, there's like 1 week there's this is the new person doing this instrument, and this is the new person playing this thing, and this is the new, and then they announced an album title. A year down the line, we're all going, hello, hi. And what they're doing now is they seem to be tarting up a whole load of early demos and various things. It's great fun, actually, if you want to keep up with it. There's lots of great music too, and they're just sticking it out there for you to hear. I'd quite like a new album though, please. Just saying. So yeah, my number 5 is Hex.
The problem I have with Hex is the vocalist. It's his band, and he's a great singer, but he should be singing in a different band. I mean, it's not that he can't. Sometimes you hear these bands, the guy can't sing, right? This guy can sing. But he sounds like he should be on Broadway.
See, that's what I meant by the theatrical edge.
Yeah, well, he should be singing in My Fair Lady or something like that. I mean, it's just,
it's just more oomph than that. Come on,
I could see this guy. I could see this guy wearing a zoot suit or something, or being in Guys and Dolls or something on Broadway. He's a great singer. He really is. But I don't find there's a total disconnect between his vocals and the music, and the music's really good.
The music's really good, and I mean, I did allude to the fact that a lot of people do have an issue with these vocals. I put it on and I listen to him sing this music, and it kind of makes me feel a bit like this. It's very pumped up and bravado and grand, and I do totally get where you're coming from, Ken, but it works for me. It might not work for others.
I don't know, it was a little fluffy for me, It was a little light in the loafers for me, but But
Yeah, maybe a bit of a lovey and a darling, but there you go.
yeah, I don't know. I could see him. I could see him in the touring company of Rent or something like that, but just not in a metal band. Good singer, just not.
I see it.
I gotta check him out. I don't know him, so I gotta check that out.
Hey, check it. Go on my website. I got them all cheap. Anyway, I have them. You know.
Shameless
There's
plug.
a definite theme developing here.
Yeah,
He's
well,
probably got all these on his.
I do. I have a lot. I know I have a lot of these, and some of them we're clearing out, or I have an inventory, and but.
I'd just like to put it out there that Ken did not suggest this show.
No, I didn't. But I'm kind of pleased because I never get to talk about metal.
See,
I got my biggest selling label is my metal label, and I never get to talk about it.
Today is the day.
So tonight, man.
And by the way, we will be putting everybody's list in the comments below. So fear not, if you want to go shopping, you'll have these lists from everybody after the show. So
tonight's show is called Ken's Revenge.
There you go. Yes.
I'm sorry.
I thought today's show was called The Sale is Real.
Or The Price is Right. So.
Yeah, there you go. All right, George.
My number 7 is from the Netherlands, Sun Caged. 3 albums. They're broken up now. To me, Marcel Koenen's kind of like almost at that Petrucci Romeo level of just a guy that does it all. Has great songwriter, great player, band leader, the whole spiel. First album had a different singer, a guy like a helium voice, really high. And with this album, Paul Adrian Villarreal came in. To me, he made them the band that they became in the last 2 albums, which one of my favorite bands in the genre. This is Lion Music. So you probably don't carry this one anymore, but
I might.
Really, really good band.
I might actually have I do have some Sun Cage title in stock, I think.
And number 6 is from Tunisia, Mirath.
Oh yeah, good band. I can't believe I forgot them.
First, this is the debut, 2007. They used to be a Symphony X tribute band, so this is very Symphony X. They don't have a singer at this point. The keyboardist sings. He's actually a capable singer. I mean, he's not the greatest guy you've ever heard, but he's good. A lot of people really like him. And they get a different singer on the second album. He's real good. He was like a competition singer over there. And they're still doing close to Symphony X thing. But then the 3 most recent ones, they added like a commercial edge, kind of like Amaranth maybe. And a lot of people really dig it. To me, the trademark of their band is probably production. The production on all these is insane. I mean, they do the symphonic thing like Symphony X does. And some of the best produced stuff in the genre, if you ask me.
I've seen them live as well, George.
Yeah.
From memory, they opened for Camelot.
Oh, that'd be cool, Bill.
They played Prog Power.
That's right. They were great. Absolutely great.
They were phenomenal at Prog Power.
I haven't seen them.
Oh, yeah. Well,
The album is great,
though.
My number 5 is from Sweden. Talked about them before, Andromeda. This is one of the great debuts ever. Very Dream Theater-ish, but it doesn't, like, they're in that parameter, but it doesn't remind you of Dream Theater, really. The singing is definitely different. The guitar player and the drummer are both going nuts on this album. The next album, they kind of tempered it down, but the songs are of equal quality. And maybe there's 5 albums. Maybe the last one it's a step down. That's going 10 years ago now. It was 2011. The keyboardist got into a lot of right-wing politics and stuff, so a lot of the lyrics are like false flag operations and stuff, real kooky stuff. But they're not officially broken up, but they're about as inactive as it gets. So I don't know if you're going to hear more from them, but I do suggest checking out the first 4. Really good standard prog metal stuff.
George, didn't they re-record Extension of the Wish, or they redid the vocals with a new vocalist?
Yeah, with the eventual singer. So you both out there.
Them on my honorable mentions.
Yeah, that guy's really good, kind of Gildan Low style, maybe not quite as dramatic, but yeah, that guy's really good.
Good band. Yeah, I haven't listened to those in a while. That's good stuff. All right, Ken, back to you.
All right, I got a bunch of honorable mentions. I tended to discount or not include a lot of bands that they're sort of cut from the Dream Theater cloth. You know, Dream Theater is that's the gold standard, right? I mean, they just are. And so a lot of these bands we're talking about, they're great bands. They're really great bands, but they sort of lack, and I can go see them and enjoy them and love them, but they lack a little bit of an originality. So when we're talking about like the top 10, they kind of sank to like the, 11 through 15 for me. So what are we doing? What am I doing? Number 7?
6'5", yeah.
Okay. So Leprous, Tall Poppy Syndrome. This is the one that we put out, and still my favorite Leprous album. They're an interesting band, kind of dark, a little twisted. When we released this, I actually heard a lot of Van de Graaff Generator in here, and which, it was sort of like, there's actually Mellotron on this record. It had a little prog rock flavor to it, a bit avant-garde. Vocals a little different. In general, overall, it's been interesting watching the band develop, because they've kind of developed their own sound, very atmospheric, heavy now than music. Maybe even some people consider it not even metal, but I still think.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's metal at all. I find their last 2 albums quite boring, actually.
I like
the stuff.
I like the Feeling. I didn't like the one before it. But
I was going to say, would it be unkind to say that they kind of started here and have slowly done that?
The thing is, they're not a conventional band. They're a prog metal band in the true sense that they were doing something different, and and that's what attracted me to them. And I thought this was a great record. I liked Bilateral a lot. I was pissed off I didn't do it. I should have done it. And it did very well for Inside Out. I'm glad it did well for Inside Out, because they're a good label and nice people. And a band I like, nice guys. They also play with Ishan, and put on a great live show. And this, like I said, there's something different. And a lot of these bands that I'm picking, they're not. I'm trying to stay away from that cookie cutter Dream Theater type band. As talented as they are and enjoyable as they are, I gravitate towards the bands that are just a little sort of outside the circle. Next band I got, not one of mine, but a great band, and I'm sorry I didn't get to see them live. Green Carnation, Norwegian band. Almost hard. Again, you don't know the band, or you don't like the band?
Never heard the name in my life.
Oh, really?
Stevie, you would like this band.
Yeah, their early stuff is quite good.
Yeah, I mean, did you, Pete? I'm losing my mind again this week. Pete, did you like this album? This is the most recent one.
I have not heard that. Yeah, I haven't heard a Green Carnation album in probably 10 years, but I heard all the early ones.
As it says, it's the return with new material for the first time in 14 years. So they kind of squeaked in, and their first album, I think, came out in 2000. Yeah. Again, very almost unclassifiable, very atmospheric. There's this sort of avant-garde element to them, a doom metal element, definitely progressive.
Lots of Hammond.
The guitar player is Short, I believe you pronounce his name. Very, very good vocals. Just very emotion-driven. Have a live album that's phenomenal. I find there's a great consistency to all their albums. They've gone through lineup changes, and something a bit different, and definitely progressive, but not a cookie cutter band. I'd be hard pressed to find another band that sounded exactly like Green Carnation. Stevie, you should check them out.
All their albums are really different from each other too.
Yeah, but very, very forward-thinking band.
Yep.
And I think you should check them out. I think you'd like them.
I will check them out.
All right, my next band as already been mentioned, Redemption. And we did the first two Redemption albums. First one was with Rick Mathiasen from Steel Prophet on vocals, and he didn't work out too well. And Nick Van Dyke, whose band it is Nick Van Dyke's band, he was good friends with Ray Alder, and he was able to get Ray to join the fun. And the highlight for me, all their bands and all of Nick's writing is consistent. George mentioned it. I mean, all the albums have very, very fine writing. I'm partial to this one. This is Fullness of Time. Origins of Ruin is a great one. Ray left the fold, and Tom Englund from Evergrey sang on the last album. Something's a little missing for me, but I mean, and Tom's a great singer, but I like him better within the context of Evergrey. And he really is a phenomenal singer. Ray is like big shoes to fill, and within the context, certainly within the context of Redemption. And if you're a Fates Warning fan, a Dream Theater fan, Redemption, great band, and great band live. First time was when when they first toured. They toured with Dream Theater. When I wrote, that was the first time I saw them, and seen them a number of times. And we also did a live CD DVD, live from the pit. So if you're into DVDs, I think there's what, 2 or 3. They've put out 2 or 3 DVDs. Yeah. So that's what I got so far.
Cool. More about them in a minute. So I got maybe like 2 bands that really kind of bridge the gap between progressive rock and progressive metal. They have elements of both. I think like this band I'm going to talk about now has enough heavy stuff in their catalog that I always thought of them as a prog metal band, but I know lots of people who don't like prog metal who like these guys a lot because they have a lot of lighter, more atmospheric stuff. They debuted on Ken's label initially, and then they made their way to Inside Out, and I'm assuming they're still on Inside Out at this point. I kind of lose track after a while, but the band is from Poland, and it's Riverside. This is their second album from 2005. Their first album is 2003. If anybody hasn't seen it, Stephen and I did a ranking of the albums of Riverside, a year and a half ago, Stephen, at least?
Yeah.
Something like that. And we had a really hard time ranking the catalog because there's so much quality there. And my favorite album by them changes all the time. So I grabbed their CDs and I was like, all right, which one do I show today? And even today, I was kind of like, I don't even know which one's my favorite anymore. I like them all. So I just pulled out this one. I love the early ones are great. The latter period ones are great. The mid period ones are great. A lot of people have said over the years, they're kind of like a heavier, denser Porcupine Tree. I don't know. Big guitars, lots of keyboards. Mariusz Duda has great vocals. And their music is very kind of mournful and emotional, but it is heavy at times. So again, a great band. I love them. I can listen to anything in their catalog. I don't think they ever put out a dud of an album. They're all good. The debut is fantastic. The first 3 were what really got me into them, but man, then you got Anno Domini High Definition, which is killer. That might have been I think I might have even had it as my favorite when we did this. I don't remember.
It was my favorite. I don't think we had quite agreed, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I think it was close to the top. But anyway, all their albums are really good.
Yeah.
They've had some tragedy in the band. They've gotten past it, and I think we're going to see something new from them. I think sometime later this year, right, or early next year, something like that.
It'll probably. I have a feeling it'll slip into early next year.
Yeah. But a great band from Poland, Riverside. Next up, so all right, Redemption. Again, another one of those bands where I really like most of their albums almost equally. I picked Snowfall and Judgment Day, which is one of their more recent ones. No, not that recent, but and I will agree with what both Ken and George said. To me, this band is not quite the same without Ray Alder. Ray Alder became the voice of this band. He spent most of his time doing Riverside stuff while Fates Warning was doing nothing. And then he decided to leave Redemption to go back to Fate's Warning, who now, have released a couple of really good albums in a row, and now the rumors are that they're done. And in the meantime, Tom England from Evergrey has jumped into the fold here. And Ken is absolutely right. Tom is one of the best singers out there today. I don't know if he's the best singer for this band, though, because I think when I heard that he was joining Redemption, I was kind of like, he has such a distinctive and very powerful sound that I was like, there's no way that Redemption is not going to sound like Evergrey now. And I think the album they did with Tom is really good. Sounds too much like Evergrey to me because of him, I think. It's just, his voice is so overpowering. And part of me is like, well, if Fate's Warning is done, can't he just come back to Riverside, please? I mean, at Riverside at Redemption, I'm getting all these names confused here. But I don't know. So I don't know what's going to happen with these guys. But Nick Van Dyke, really nice guy, really good songwriter, good guitar player, great prog metal. Any of the albums are really, really good. So that's my number 6. And my number 5 is a band. So for me, what was really difficult about this assignment is that there are a lot of bands that are borderline progressive metal and progressive extreme metal. There's a lot of bands that could be called progressive metal that are they're death metal bands, and I'm going to name a couple of them in my honorable mentions. But and there's a ton of them. So I'm like, well, you can't include all of them, right? So I tried to keep them separate. This particular band, though, uses clean vocals and some growls. They're not really death metal growls. They're more kind of like a metalcore type of thing. But man, they play some of the most complex music around. They've got a bunch of concept albums. They're from South Carolina, North Carolina. Hold on, I'll tell you in a second. They're from Raleigh, North Carolina. The band is Between the Buried and Me. They've got the singer is their keyboard player. He's a great clean vocalist. He's also does the kind of metalcore growl type thing really, really well. They've got 2 guitar players. One is a tremendous rhythm guitar player. The other guy is an absolute shredder. Their bassist and vocal and drummer are just outstanding. Like I said, they've got these really dense, aggressive albums. They did 3 or 4 concept albums in a row. This is Colors. This is their 4th album, I believe. And this was released in 2007. Yeah, it's their 4th album. So this was kind of like their big breakthrough album. The album Alaska, which came before this, I think was the one that really got the attention of, non-metalcore, extreme metal fans, because that started to get more complex and more progressive. But with this album, and then with the Great Misdirect, and then the Parallax, and the Coma Ecliptic, and the Automata, and then Colors 2. So they've just been on a roll with one concept album after another. They're ferocious live and just jaw-dropping instrumental abilities, and really heavy, really progressive. They throw some weird kind of like carnival stuff in from time to time. They've got a little Faith No More thing going on from time to time as well. But this is a great band. I love it. So Between the Buried and Me, number 5.
Did you ever hear Dan Briggs, the bass player? You ever hear Dan Briggs' other band, Trioscapes?
Yes, quite good as well.
Saw them.
Yeah.
Saw them play at a small club in Philly with Scale the Summit. Just crazy, man. They're supposedly working on another album, I think. But
Scale the Summit's quite good as well.
I don't know. Does Scale the Summit still exist?
I don't know. I haven't seen them play or release anything in quite a while.
They
That's
left.
cute.
They were on Prosthetic, right?
Yep.
I think they left Prosthetic and they started putting out stuff on their own.
Could be.
They're a good band.
Talented bunch of kids, yeah. I met them once too. They played. They were on that whole Dream Theater. Big Elf Zappa Play Zappa show. Down. I saw them down in Asbury Park.
I saw them play. It was with Cynic, and I'm trying to remember. I don't remember who the third band was.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that show in New York City. I think in Irving.
I saw in Philly. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Stephen, back to you.
Okay, so my number 4 is another British band. It's interesting because when I sat down to do this, I kind of thought, well, I'm not going to be able to mention very many British acts because there's not much prog-metal here in the UK. And it turns out actually I was wrong, because one of my favourites is Aeon Zen.
One of 2022's highlights, folks.
Yeah, very much so. So my number 2 is, I'll take it out of the sleeve thing. Does anyone else know what the purpose of these is? Let's move on. I just don't understand these as a thing. I just don't get it at all.
You know what that's called? It's called an O card.
It's called a what?
An O card, like the letter O.
Otherwise known as a slipcase.
Yeah,
Well, no. See if it had a spine, it would be a slipcase. But without that, it's called an O card.
Because you can do this with it, Ken. Is that?
Guys, I'm giving you some industry insider info. Okay,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
So how come on the Blu-ray side they don't call them O cards? They call them slipcases, and they're exactly the same as those.
Well, do you know what I call these? Dangerous.
Waste.
I call these dangerous because what happens is you pick up the CDs and you do this with them and they fall out the bottom. That's what happens with these. Please don't do these, bands. Don't do these. Okay, I don't like these. Please don't do them.
How about the ones you could barely get out of those?
Oh, for a show that we're doing for the UK Connection soon, I was listening to some stuff that I've had for years that has been in a slipcase, not an O case, for a long time, not been taken out. What a fight. What a fight it was today to free it, liberate it from the pack. Anyway, this is Seventh Wonder, everybody. They maybe kind of fall into that category that Ken was talking about. Seventh Wonder don't do a huge amount that you wouldn't expect. They are falling firmly into, this is prog metal, everybody. There's lots of kind of Dream Theater here. There's lots of Symphony X in here. I think personally that they are kind of the best of the bands post-2000 to be doing that. They debuted in 2005, well, an album called Become, which is a bit, in my humble opinion. From there, they've been excellent. And they've got a guy called Tommy Karavik on vocals, who's also the singer in Camelot these days. He is first rate. He's as good as they get. And I think that helps raise Seventh Wonder higher than the other bands that are out there doing this sound, because there are quite a lot of them. Seventh Wonder are my favourite by quite some distance. They've got a brand new album out, which I'm still getting into, like it a lot, but I'm still going back to 2010's The Great Escape as my favourite from the band. And I can't get enough of Seventh Wonder. I just think that they write excellent songs that stick in the mind. And as I say, they've got a singer that just can do it justice. And not every band in this genre does, in my humble opinion. So my number 2 is Seventh Wonder.
I think Tommy's better in Seventh Wonder than he is in Camelot.
Sure.
Yeah,
would
I would
agree
agree
with
with that. Yeah, I think in Camelot he's very good. I mean, he's
Oh,
very,
he's really good in Camelot, but
Yeah.
he's fulfilling a role. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because
Well, yeah, I mean, he had the biggest shoes of all to fill.
absolutely, and he does it in a sense where if you weren't paying too much attention, you might not notice. Does that make sense? You know that the vocal melodies are very similar and all that sort of stuff. You know it's a different guy singing.
Seventh Wonder made one album which drove me up a tree. I'm pretty sure it was Seventh Wonder. I think it was Mercy Falls. Is that the one that has the narration on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like they asked two non-actors to recite. It's a concept album that's telling a story. It was like they got this man and this woman to narrate, and they're like acting out the storyline. And it's like they gave it to their friends to read for the first time from a piece of paper, and it's just awful, absolutely awful. It detracted from me from that album so much.
Me too. Super hammy.
Yeah, really hammy and just bad. I saw them at the Headway Festival. That was a great festival. That was when that's when I signed Morgable, and that was that, and 0 Hour played, and Redemption played. We went over to Amsterdam to see them, and Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum. Great show. Anyway, so I saw Seventh Wonder. They didn't set my world on fire, but I think they've put out good CDs, really good CDs. And again, from that Dream Theater mold broadly, and boy, they go over so well at Prog Power. I think Glenn keeps inviting them back, and everybody just go crazy for them. So
cool. All right, George.
All right. My number 4 from Australia, Caligula's Horse.
Oh, yeah.
They're prog metal, but they have touches of both alt metal, I would say, and djent also, a little bit of the djenting style, but they're both background. It's mostly prog metal. They just use that to color it. The singer kind of reminds me of Maynard from Tool. Good singer, especially the mellow stuff. He really carries it. I think this is a band that someone that's not fully into prog metal could get into, just based on the vocals carry a lot of these tunes, and they're not like super soloist guys. The guitar player shreds, but he's not all over the place. The solos tend to be concise. This is they have 5 albums. This is the third of the 5 albums. Number 3 is from Sweden, Darkwater. This band, really, really good singer, Henrik Path. This is the third of the 3. They work really slow. They got that super clean, really nice Swedish production. Sweden and Germany, all the studios over there sound great. And the guitar player engineers these records. A couple of these guys also have a side band, Harmony, power metal band. There's not a huge amount of difference in the two. This has got more of a progressive edge and maybe a little more playing, but just like super clean. Like maybe you could criticize them for being too much in the Dream Theater parameters, although they don't really remind me of Dream Theater, but I could see someone saying that. Darkwater. My number 2, Stanky Scientist from the US. This band don't sound anything like Dream Theater. They're all over the place. They got their own thing going. Sax, trumpet, violin, all kinds of unconventional approaches, a totally different sounding singer, a high guy with really sweet melodies, unusual voice that might be off-putting for some people like Ken. But yeah.
he's right.
All 4 albums are great. I mean, it's 3 albums and an EP actually, but yeah, if you want something different out of prog metal, this is the place to go.
Don't know then.
Very interesting band. Yep.
George, I mean, he might have been kidding, but he's right. I mean, I actually told Tom Mondo, their guitarist, I said, the singer's Sal, right? His name is Sal. I said, he's a great singer, but he's the wrong singer in the band. So to me, I told him, man, maybe that's why they didn't sign with me. But to me, he's like an emo singer.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
He's just, I mean, for a band that's kind of off kilter, off the wall, there's almost like a Zappa element to what they do. And I guess he fits in that respect because he's not the kind of singer you would expect.
Yeah, there's nothing expected out of that band at all.
They're great. They're really great players.
On collision of all this weird stuff. And
Tom's great. Tom's a great guitar player. He was a student of Bumblefoot's, if I recall, and nice guys and great live band. I saw them 2 or 3 times. I would prefer they had a different singer. That's all. Sorry.
It's all right.
At least you called it, George.
Yeah.
George was right.
There you go.
George, what do you think? I mean, as a singer, I mean,
I like him. He's not one of my favorites, but he's a plus on a lot of the songs for me. Mostly because I'm a melody guy. The physical voice is fine, but if you don't got the melodies, his melodies are good.
Okay.
All right, Ken, what do you got? Next 3.
Okay, so what number am I doing now? I'm doing 5.
4, 3, and 2.
4, 3, and 2. Okay, so number 4, I'm surprised this hasn't been mentioned unless it's coming. Haken. So we released, this is their first album, Aquarius. We did this one in Visions, their first 2 albums. You really, with this album, they drove everybody nuts because they were a great band and you really didn't know what to expect from this album. It was kind of a little bit all over the place. Visions seemed a little bit more focused, a little different. And I've just watched the band evolve. This is perhaps it's very symphonic sounding and got a strong prog rock component to it. But to me, they're a prog metal band. And they moved over to Inside Out, and I think they've made some phenomenal albums. Their music has gotten a little bit more technical, but you hear little references to Gentle Giant and things like that. And in fact, if I remember correctly, when they've been touring, they've been doing some covers. I think. Yeah,
they did Owner of a Lonely Heart a couple of weeks ago when I saw them, which was weird, but it worked.
Incredible players.
Did they do it straight, or did they mix it up?
No, they did it pretty straight. Yeah, it was weird.
Okay. I've only seen them as an opening act, and I mean they just played their own stuff and they were great. So that's.
It was like 3/4 of the way through the set, and all of a sudden you hear da da da. I looked at my brother. I looked at Rich Pitino. I'm like, really? You're gonna go there? What? They don't need to play this. People got into it, so I was like, whatever. What do I know?
Didn't they seg out of 1985 doing that?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Anyway, I dig these guys.
Yeah.
Incredible musicians, and the thing about them is they really are a progressive band. Each album is a bit different. They keep changing. They're still exploring, and they're still making quality music. So, Haken rhymes with bacon.
Yep. Charlie's new solo album is quite good.
Yep.
Oh, Charlie Griffiths.
Yeah. I'm getting into it now.
I didn't hear Rich's solo album. He put it out himself.
Yeah, I
liked it.
And Ross's album, well, it's not a metal album. I'm not sure what it is, but. All right, my next one. I'm gonna knock these guys down one ranking only because they broke my heart. Sorry, and that's Arcane. And George had the right singer, but the wrong band. This is Jim Gray. Jim Gray was in 2 bands at the same time. He was singing in Arcane and he was singing in Caligula's Horse. and then ultimately he decided that he would go with Caligula's Horse full time, and Arcane broke up. This is their second album. Their first album was a bit more traditional prog metal, Dream Theater-ish. This one, the second album, called Known, Learned. I talked about it, I think, when we did what was it, like the best albums of the 2010s or something like that.
I think so.
And again, Jim is just, to me, he may be the best singer in metal. I think he's just an extraordinary vocalist, and it's very emotion driven, very dynamic, a lot of quiet parts. The second disc, it's a double album. This one is a double album. Second disc is a bit softer than the first one, long tracks. Just one of these albums, man, you just like, you want to turn off the lights and just sort of soak it all in. There's a Tool influence to it, but it doesn't hit you over the head with it. Arcane. I can't speak highly enough about this album. I think it's absolutely a brilliant album. And like I said, had they not broken up, might have even been my number one album. Next band I was fortunate to see live, and I got to do two of their albums, their second and third, Diablo Swing Orchestra. And these guys, man, they're crazy. It's prog metal, it's swing jazz, it's whatever you want it to be. There's a ton of guys on stage, and they gave one of the most amazing performances I've ever seen. And guys, I've been to a lot of shows over the years. They really were extraordinary. At this point, they had a classically trained opera singer. She was a member of the band for the first three albums, and she left. And it's still good, but she was the sound of that band. And they have a good singer now, but this, you listen to this album from track to track, you're not sure where they're going, and it's just jaw-dropping great stuff. Diablo Swing Orchestra. That's what I got for number two.
Cool. Yeah, it's insane band. Insane. All right. My number 4 from Georgia is Mastodon. This is Crack the Sky. These guys debuted in 2002, originally kind of like a post-hardcore, like sludge band. And then they just all of a sudden, starting on their second album, Leviathan, became like this amazing progressive metal band. And, Blood Mountain, Crack the Sky. The Hunter is more of a straightforward album, but then they did Once More Around the Sun. Their last two albums, Emperor of Sand and Hushed and Grim, are terrific. This is probably my favorite. Like I said, either this or Blood Mountain. Just very, very heavy music, amazing technical drumming and guitar playing, and they've got a couple of guys in the band sing, so you get like that real variety on the vocal front. This critics' darlings, right? Lots of people dig them. I've seen them live many times. They're really good live, and I just like them a lot. I wish their last like two albums has gotten back to their more technical style. They got away from that a little bit when they started really getting popular, but there's some just incredible stuff on here. Really, really great band. So that's my number 4. My number 3 is Seventh Wonder from Sweden. And I did pull out Mercy Falls because I really like this album a lot, but I agree that the narration part of it is a little weird, but I think musically speaking, there's some great stuff on here. I like all their albums. I think their least refined is the debut, but man, their new album is terrific. The one before that is terrific. Just a great band. Tommy is such a great singer. They give you just enough kind of shred, as far as like the keys and the guitars go, but they always have great melodies and lots of hooks. And, like Ken said, out of the bands that kind of do this sort of thing, and Stephen mentioned it as well, they're probably one of the best of the kind of Dream Theater style bands by far. For me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I had to include them just because they're one and done from 2000, so they just squeezed in, but Spiral Architects, because this is what's great about this is that it doesn't sound like anybody else. very unique band, and you know, bunch of Norwegians just playing this really aggressive, very technical and complicated, but still kind of melodic music. Sensory Records, and then that was it. That was it. Just amazing stuff. We've talked about it a lot here on the channel, so I'm not going to go in depth. If you've never heard of Skeptic's Universe from Spiral Architect, you need to. One of the great technical prog metal albums of all time from 2000. All right, our number ones. I have a feeling a couple of ours might be the same. Stephen, what do you got?
Well, Ken asked why they hadn't already been mentioned, and the reason for that is because Haken are my number one. I think they're the pin-up boys for this scene right now. I think that they are one of the best, if not the best, well, they're certainly my favourite from this era that have come out since 2000. Remarkably consistent, remarkably diverse, but always you put it on and you know it's them. But when you think about the journey that they've gone on from the debut to what they've done with the last couple of albums, the evolution is really quite profound, I think. I mean, Ken's already mentioned the first couple of albums. I actually picked up the whole catalogue because I thought, well, I might get mentioned, but then I'll show something different. So I've got The Mountain here, and I've got Affinity. I think personally, The Mountain is my personal favourite. I just think that it's the great blend between, I would suggest, a more technical prog rock with metal elements at the start. I would say they're more overtly a prog metal band now.
Yeah. That
to me is the combination of those parts coming together perfectly. And this is probably the best of the ones that are more overtly prog metal, in my humble opinion. So yeah, Haken, great band. If you haven't listened to them, and I really hope you have, then you really should. There's so much to like about the catalogue. All 6 albums are great.
Yep. George? Boing.
Like Steven, I wanted to hold one up that no one else is going to hold up, so I got the demo here.
I do not have that.
Yeah, for a while they were giving it away on the Facebook page, and then they were having a fan was like, they entrusted a fan to make CDRs, and they made artwork, and they were sending it to everybody. And now they're selling it on their Bandcamp, so you can get it.
Okay.
Even at the start here, you got two demos from 07 and 08. Already they're sounding real professional. I assume this is what you heard, Ken, before you signed them, but
Yeah.
Already they're like almost a finished prog band. So I kind of understand why the debut sounds so polished, is because they went through this process of getting it all together. And you got 7 albums, which is tied for the most out of any of the bands I said. And no down album, no down songs hardly. I mean, they're that good. So for me, it was easy to say, hey.
I'm surprised they haven't really like redone those tracks or.
There's a couple on Restoration EP. One of them is complete on there, and one of them is pieced out in a long song.
One of the reasons we signed them back then, I mean, the demo was great, but I had heard that they were packing them in the clubs, that people were coming out to see them. There was a buzz about the band, and that's, you know, and they were playing regularly in the UK, and you know, it took off like crazy.
They are one of the very few progressive metal bands here in the UK that I was aware of before they had an album out. It was one of those albums that I had to have when it came out, because it was just so many people saying, you have to hear this band, and I hadn't heard anything at that stage. So when the debut came out, I was like right on it straight away. And it's a wild journey in all the right ways.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to Aquarius and you listen to what they're doing now. I mean, it's the same band, but it's a very different.
Yeah, very much.
But it's all good, you know. There are some guys that like the old stuff, and you know, but that's always going to be the case, right?
Yeah.
So my turn.
Yeah.
George, you let me down, man.
I don't know how many times I can mention that on this show.
I know, but you know, for me, I mean, I'm not, you know, for me, this is the alpha and the omega.
Yeah.
So it really is. I mean, it's technical, it's progressive, it's
Spiral Architect.
It's Spiral Architect. And if you haven't heard it, then you gotta find a copy somewhere. it's a very special record. And it was like putting this album out, man, it was like giving birth. It took a long time, but it was well worth it. So great. So that's my number one. And I've talked about it enough in the past, so no point, nothing else to say.
Haken, number one. I kind of agree with Steven. I think this generally speaking is my favorite, although I love all of them. You know, the first two are amazing. The most recent ones are amazing, but like Ken mentioned, they are a little different. I think, you know, I've always really liked them, but man, I saw them open up for Symphony X a couple of weeks ago, and I think I gained a new perspective of them. I guess sometimes you see some of these bands live and you see how they pull this stuff off live on stage and how it even sounds bigger, and man, can they play. And it's like, you know, Ross is a great front man, but man, these two guitar players are just so good. And that drummer is so good. And it's just like, you know, the keyboards and the bass. I mean, everybody in the band just plays their roles to perfection, but they're all like in sync together. And they sound so huge live. So yeah, you could start with any album of theirs. I tend to go to the Mountain. I think this is the album that like really made me a big fan. I like the ones that came before it a lot, but then I heard this and I was like, oh, now it's just all coming together. So yeah, Haken, number one. Anybody want to rattle off any quick honorable mentions?
I got some.
Steven, you got a couple?
I don't have many. Probably for the reasons that were mentioned. I found that a lot of the ones that I considered initially, when I really gave it some thought, I thought, well, they don't fall into the prog metal for me. They're maybe more extreme, or they're maybe too djent, or whatever it may be. So I've only come away with three. A band called Acute Mind, who are from Poland. They only put out 2 albums, both really good. It's just that Polish prog metal sound that you get, but they're well worth checking out. So if you like that Polish sound, I would definitely recommend them.
Is there a Polish prog-metal sound?
I would say there is. Yeah, I would say that Riverside have kind of borne the sound. Yeah.
See, to me, Riverside's not a metal band, but you know.
No, but I think it's used as a base, and then I think you hear a lot of Riverside and a lot of Polish bands that don't necessarily just do what they're doing. But I think that they opened the door for lots of bands to think, actually, if they can be as big as they are doing that.
I think there are a lot of bands that copy Riverside, but you know.
Yeah. Well, Acute Mind are a bit heavier than that, put it that way. Because I know they're one of Pete's choices, but I didn't consider them prog metal either. Never Awake, an American band that only released 1 album in 2014 called Underground, which is excellent, kind of involved prog metal. I wish they would do some more because they appear to still be on the go from what I can work out. And the last one is Headspace. So that's Damon Wilson, Pete Rinaldi, Adam Wakeman, Lee Pomeroy, and Richard Brooke. And they have put out 2 albums. I Am Anonymous, other than the fact I can't say it, which was their debut from 2012. That's my preference out of the 2. But both are pretty good, I have to say. I really like the first one. The second one I wasn't quite so sold. But that's my honourable mentions.
Cool. George?
I would repeat what you guys said. Mastodon, Seventh Wonder, Leprous, and Circus Maximus, even though both of them, the last 2, I don't like. The ones that haven't been said, Venturia, a French band, 3 albums. The first 2 were quite good. Third one, The guitar player started singing, and that was good. And also a power prog band, Pagan's Mind.
Oh yeah, I love them.
They do what they do really well. Maybe a little too power metal-y for some people, but yeah, that's what I got.
Great band.
I wasn't sure about the date on Pagan's Mind, so
The debut's 02?
was it
2000.
Yeah.
a good band. Supposedly working on a new album, I think.
Yeah, they've been working on that one for
For a long time. The ones I got have all been talked about. We got My Wrath, great band. Seventh Wonder, of course. Andromeda. And one band you guys didn't mention, another one of mine, Canvas Solaris.
Oh yeah,
From Georgia. Instrumental technical metal. And again, if you're a fan of Cynic and some of these other tech bands that we talked about, Scale the Summit. In fact, it was kind of funny because when Scale the Summit came out with their first album, it had a sticker on it for fans of Canvas Solaris. I saw that and I said, did you see the sales figures for this? Do you really want to do that? You think that's a good idea?
For fans of Canvas Solaris, who the hell's Canvas Solaris?
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
For the fan of.
Yeah, and yeah. So if you do like that stuff, you know, Canvas Solaris, very good. And they put out, they broke up and they got back together and did a new album. I guess it was last year already. Maybe it was the beginning of this year, I forget. And same old thing, you know, same sound, instrumental, tech metal, really, really good. Touches on prog rock and other things. Good band, Canvas Solaris.
Cool.
That's what I got. Oh, one last one, only because I didn't have a prop. Really good Greek band that I was lucky to see at Prog Power, Need, N-E-E-D. They put out a number of albums, and the last one has a title, Hegemaias, I think it's called. It's very difficult to pronounce. Fantastic concept album, great singer, really wonderful band.
Cool.
That's what I got.
Yeah, most of mine have been mentioned. I had Pagan's Mind, I had Circus Maximus, I had Sun Caged, My Wrath, Into Eternity I had on my list as well. Suspire.
Oh,
remember those guys? They had a
Happened
couple
to them.
I did one of their albums.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Pathos Ray, another really good prog metal band.
Another sensory band.
Yeah.
I see a theme here. I like it,
Yeah,
man. I like where
yeah.
you're going, Pete.
What else I got? I was kind of borderline putting these guys on here, but Orphan Land, they kind of do a lot of everything.
They were on my list initially, and I didn't put them in. But yeah, okay, great band though.
Yeah, and right. And then the last one, again, probably more into the death metal camp, but they're just so progressive and so technical. Obscura, I had to put them on here. I really dig them a lot. I mean, man, some of the stuff they do is just absolutely incredible. So there's a lot of those type of bands that kind of like border on the extreme metal side of things that you could say are progressive metal, right? But so anyway, there you go, everybody. Like I mentioned, we're going to put our lists in the comments below, so this way you guys can go out shopping. Remember, lasercd.com. You'll be able to find a lot of these for sale and available on Ken's website. So
Bargain prices.
there you go. Mention that you saw it on here, right? So anyway, thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. All together, all the damn time. Stay tuned for more In the Prog Seat next Tuesday. Tomorrow we've got new album review day. Lots of cool stuff being reviewed, so please do not miss any of those videos. For Stephen Reed, George Lemie, and Ken Golden, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow morning. Take care.
Right.